Howdy, and welcome to the Mighty Muddy Chuck channel. I'm Chuck, 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 or Chuck. That's me. Which do I look better? This? Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. Or this. Da, 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 da. So, a U.S. appeals court on Friday declared unconstitutional a nearly 158-year-old federal ban on home distilling, calling it an unnecessary and improper means for Congress to exercise its power to tax. The Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans ruled in favor of the nonprofit Hobby Distillers Association and four of its 1,300 members. It's got four instead of four. It's spelled F-O-U-R and instead of four. Okay. They argue that people should be free to distill spirits at home, whether as a hobby or for personal consumption, including, in one instance, to create an apple pie vodka recipe. They don't make them like Granny used to, no. The ban was part of a law passed during Reconstruction in July 1868, in part to thwart liquor tax evasion, and subjected violators to up to 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Writing for a three-judge panel, Circuit Judge Edith Holland Jones said the ban actually reduced tax revenue by preventing distilling in the first place. In other words, it was a lie that it was to raise revenue. That's true of a lot of our taxes. She also said that under the government's logic, Congress could criminalize virtually any in-home activity that might escape notice from tax collectors, including remote work and home-based businesses. That was one reason for this law and this ruling that overturned a law that was passed in 1868. The U.S. Department of Justice had no immediate comment, and another defendant, the Treasury Department's Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Devin Watkins, a lawyer representing the Hobby Distillers Association, in an interview called the ruling an important decision about the limits of federal power. What does this actually mean? Can I get a still and start making my own spirits? No. No, don't do that. Not so fast. While this was a tremendous move in the right direction for hobby distilling, it's not as straightforward as that. To simplify things, here are a few important takeaways in point form. First, this only covers the plaintiffs in the case. Those are one individual, Scott McNutt, and the Hobby Distillers Association. As the HDA is a member organization that advocates for the legalizing hobby distilling, the members are included. This means that you are only protected by the injunction if you are a member of the HDA. We have been asked if the free supporter option creates a membership, but as noted on our website, that is a non-member level. A show of support for the effort. The injunction does not mean that you cannot be charged for distilling at home. The injunction simply means that you cannot be denied a DSP, distilled spirits plant permit, simply because you wish to set up at home. You still must apply for the permit and abide by all its rules that a regular DSP does. So, the question is, does that mean this ruling is useless to me? What it means is that you now have the ability to obtain a permit to distill at home, assuming that your state allows it. And yes, you'll need to file the paperwork and pay the excise tax, currently $14 per gallon, or approximately $2.80 per 750 milliliter bottle at 100 proof. But you can now do this. You never had this option before. In addition, as a small producer, less than $1,000 in excise tax per year, you should be able to defer payment to the end of the year instead of having to make payment every time you produce. You also should not require a bond, simplifying the process. In other words, the order of operations for those who want to distill at home legally is make sure you're a member of the HDA so that you are one of the plaintiffs. Apply for the federal permit, receive the federal permit, and comply with all state level rules, which may include such things as receiving a permit. In Georgia, for example, a bill was proposed to allow to distill at home, but it was not passed. In Georgia, you cannot get a permit to distill spirits at home. Georgia does allow you to produce beer and wine at home, but only for personal use or for parties you host. Georgia limits the amount of beer you can produce at home. So even if Georgia does move forward now with the distilled spirits, a distilled spirits law, it will have restrictions on it, just like the beer and wine law does. Anyway, it's interesting. And it's also interesting how some members of the media have responded to this or have characterized this ruling. Vox has this headline: "The Supreme Court could legalize moonshine and ruin everything." How? I mean, McNutty versus DOJ could allow justices to seize tremendous power over the U.S. economy. How? By allowing work-at-home businesses to continue to operate without the government shutting them down? At-home businesses are important. Remote work is important. We do not need the government doing to home and remote workers what they did to moonshiners. But Vox, they wanted that law in place. They wanted that law left in place because they want the government to go after home businesses. That's the only reason they would come up with this silly article. Asinine article. Crazy article. My opinion only. But the judge made it very clear one reason for the ruling that they made was to protect home businesses from the overreach of government. But Vox, oh no, they want to shut bloggers down. Vox is part of that group of people that want to shut bloggers down. They want to prevent people from producing home videos, making money off their home videos, There's all kinds of apps out there where you can make money, data entry, all kinds of stuff. They want to shut all that down. They want you to have to go into the office, endure the traffic jams, cost you money. They want you to have to go into your workplace. They want you to be in a position where your boss can get to work, you son bitch, get to work. As opposed to say, you turn in your work, you upload your work, however it's done, and the boss says, "Wow, you did a lot here today." No, they want businesses, the corporate police state, to have total and absolute control over you. This was a good ruling. Now, whether the Supreme Court upholds it or not, that's a different matter. I don't know whether they will or not. It all depends, on what the powers that be want. Do they want to shut home businesses down? Is that the ultimate plan, to do what Vox wants, to shut the bloggers down, shut the video producers down, Shut the door dashers down, that's out in the field doing stuff, require all kind of permits. It would basically make that work impossible. Shut the Uber drivers down. Um, Shut the lemonade stands down, which in a lot of jurisdictions they do already. Um, it was a good ruling. And whether it will be upheld by the Supreme Court, I don't know. Much thanks for watching and listening. I do appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. Hit that subscribe button, you assholes.